Hi, this is a PowerPoint video about the US federal government and how much it spends on foreign aid and where it goes. And the key question here is what changes in foreign aid spending, if any, do you suggest, and why those changes? In other words, do you like how the US federal government spends money on foreign aid and helping other countries or not? First of all, what is foreign aid? There are different kinds. Cash, but the problem with donating cash to, let's say, Dictator Dan is what could Dictator Dan, the bad tyrant of some poor country, what could he do with the cash donation? The US government also can give food, sometimes gives medicine, oil, sometimes we give equipment like tractors or computers, sometimes we give weapons. Sometimes we give advice or experts. For example, we can help a poor country on how to build a bridge or a hospital or how to farm. Sometimes we set up scholarships and student exchanges. Sometimes we will do what's called loan restructuring. We will restructure or redo a loan that we made to that poor country. For example, we could say to a poor country like Haiti, you can pay us back in 30 years, not 10. And that gives the poor country a break. Sometimes we do loan forgiveness and we say to the poor country, you don't have to pay us back at all. There are lots of different ways to help and do foreign aid. Some of the aid is what we call tied aid. In other words, we'll give you money, Haiti or Cambodia or El Salvador, we'll give you money to buy American products. So the aid is tied with a condition. For example, here's money, you have to buy corn from Iowa. Tied aid is usually considered less effective because US prices are higher. So if you give money to a poor country and say you have to buy corn from Iowa, maybe the Iowa corn is more expensive. And also, the money is going to end up in the US, not in the poor target country. So if you say to Haiti you have to buy corn from Iowa, the money ends up in Iowa. You could also argue it helps the poor country and it also helps Iowa. So lots of different kinds of foreign aid. Why does the United States give foreign aid? Well, first of all, to improve US security and to get allies and friends, especially these days when you need foreign intelligence and you need to share intelligence. We also do it to improve US business and trade and commerce. If other countries become rich, they can buy more US products from Apple or Nike, whatever. We also do it because of humanitarian concerns. Most people want to try to feed the hungry and heal the sick, reduce poverty, and promote human rights. For example, help girls go to school. We also do it to reduce crime, especially illegal drug production and drug selling. When has the United States given aid and why? And what do you think of this? Are these good reasons? So it really started in World War I, 1914 to 1918. The US loaned money to our allies, England and France. And World War II, we loaned a lot of money to our allies, England and the Soviet Union. You should remember from US history class, after World War II, we did the Marshall Plan, and then we fought the Cold War, and we increased our foreign aid. The goal was to help our old capitalist allies like England and France and our new capitalist allies like Germany and Japan. We gave those World War II enemies a lot of money and help after the war. They got rich, and we wanted to stop the spread of communism. When the Cold War ended in 1991, our goals became peace in the Middle East and helping the communist countries of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union go from communist to capitalist. We also want to fight the war on drugs. In 1990s, again, the Cold War ended, so with peace, U.S. foreign aid spending decreased until September 11th, 2001. Those terrorist attacks started the global war on terrorism, the GWAT, and the main goal of U.S. aid again became security, and our foreign aid spending increased, especially giving money to Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you think we should now give money to poor countries to improve their public health and improve their hospitals to prevent pandemics? Would that be a good would that be a good use of our tax dollars and foreign aid spending? Here's a look at it over time. Again, after World War II in the 40s and 50s, we gave a lot to rebuild Europe and Germany and Japan. Since then, it's gone up and down. Basically, we spend roughly about $30 billion a year. And you see what happened after 9/11 2001. What happened to our foreign aid spending, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan, after 9/11 2001? Here it is another way. We've got our Cold War here, so we're fighting communism. 1991, the Cold War ends. So what happened to our foreign aid spending? Then we see September 11th, 2001, terrorist attacks. Then what happened to our foreign aid spending? Especially which countries? You can look here and look here. Which countries have been the main recipients? Again, here you can see changes over time. And I want to show you here that about 1% of the federal government budget is spent on foreign aid. Just 1%. It goes up and down a little bit, but to make a long story short, 1% of the federal government budget is spent on foreign aid. Here you can see a pie graph of where the federal government spends its money. A lot is spent on the military and defense. We spend a lot on healthcare. We spend a lot on income security, that's welfare for the poor, and we spend a lot on Social Security so old people can retire. How much do we spend on foreign aid or foreign assistance? What percent of the federal government budget? Here you can see in 2012, economic foreign aid, about 1%. Military foreign aid, about another 0.5%. So roughly what percent of the U.S. federal government budget is spent on foreign aid? Is it a large amount or a small amount? But, and this is really important, most Americans believe that on average, 25% or a quarter of the federal government's money is spent on foreign aid. Okay? So most Americans are clueless and totally wrong. What percent of Americans actually know the correct amount, that it's about 1%? Only 5% of Americans get that right. Again, most Americans believe that on average, we spend 25% or a quarter of the federal government's money on foreign aid. But the real answer is much, much, much less. So here it is again. This is a 2016 survey. People are asked, do you think the U.S. is now spending too much, too little, or the right amount on foreign aid? And 49%, basically half of Americans, say we're spending too much. And then they're told that we only spend about 1%. And you see that then the answers change a lot. Only a third says we're spending too much. And look at this, the amount of Americans who say we should spend more goes up. So are Americans well informed when it comes to how much the federal government spends on foreign aid? Just to give you the more recent stats, here's 2017. You see we spend a ton on Medicare and Medicaid and healthcare. We spend a ton on military. We spend a ton on national defense. All right? We spend a ton on interest paying back the debt. But foreign aid, very small amount, just about 1%. All right, how does the U.S. foreign aid spending compare to other countries? Do they give more? Do they give less? It depends on how you look at it. Let's look at just dollars. Just dollars. In 2009, who was the biggest giver of foreign aid to poor countries? And again, it's roughly $30 billion. However, if you look at foreign aid spending as a percent of national income, this is GNI, gross national income, total national income. Where does the US rank compared to these other rich nations like England, Spain, France, Germany, Japan? Where does the US rank as a percent of all of our national money? Where does the US rank? Are we among the biggest givers, middle of the pack, or are we among the lightest, lowest, worst givers? Here's the United Nations target. The United Nations, the rich nations agreed, let's try to give about 0.7% of our money. And you can see where the US is, giving 0.1% of the nation's money. This UN target has been affirmed many times. It's been upheld many times when the leaders urge the rich countries to try to give 0.7% of the nation's money. All right, where does U.S. foreign aid go? Let's look at it by category. Again, some of it is military aid. Some of it is humanitarian. It's food, it's medicine. Where does it go? By type. Some of it is the security aid, weapons. Some of it is humanitarian aid, food, medicine. Again, different types. Where does U.S. foreign aid go by region? Well, in 2000, a lot of it went to the Near East, the Middle East. Why do you think it went to the Middle East? What resource does the Middle East have that the U.S. cares about? Also, a lot of it went to Latin America. Why? What do we care about? What happens in Latin America that we care about? Then you had a major event. You had the September 11th, 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001. So let's look at our foreign aid spending after that. How has it changed? Look at our spending to the Middle East. Look at our spending to South and Central Asia. That includes Afghanistan and Africa. What has been the big change in our foreign aid spending and why? Here's another look at it. This look is by region. This look is more specific. It's by country. Where does our foreign aid go? Back in 2000, we gave a lot to Israel. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. They are our ally in the Middle East. The United States have Jews who care about the Jews in Israel. And we give a lot to Egypt. Why do we give so much to Colombia and Bolivia and Peru? What do we care about in South America? Again, then we had this 9/11 2001 terrorist attacks. Then who became the top recipients of U.S. foreign aid? Afghanistan, because they harbored the al-Qaeda terrorists who did the 9/11 attack. Pakistan is right next door, okay? And we also invaded Iraq in 2003 because we believed they had weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons, so they became a big recipient. So how has our foreign aid spending changed because of 9/11? Now, let's also look at private giving done by Americans. This is not done by the US government. This is private Americans, your family, my family, individual American citizens, and also we have individual American charities, what we call non-governmental organizations or NGOs, charities like the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, religious groups like your church or your synagogue. Let's look at U.S. private giving. How does the U.S. rank in private giving? This is per person per day. The United States government gives about 13 cents per person per day to poor countries. Private American individual citizens give about 5 cents. How does that compare to other rich nations like the United Kingdom? That's Britain, that's England. All right, we give more than the English citizen. We give more than a person in Sweden. But how do we compare to Norway and their charitable giving? You can also compare this to how much does an American spend a day on soda. We spend about 60 cents a day on soda, 300 cents a day on coffee, that's $3, 5 cents a day to poor countries around the world. What do you think of that? Should we give more? Should we give less? And why? Now, here's another look at it. This is looking at 1 year, spending over a whole year. Americans spend more on candy, sporting goods like a hockey stick or a tennis racket, and jewelry than the US government spends on poverty reducing foreign aid. So if you look at the US government spending on foreign aid per person over the course of a year, it's about $90. Compare that to how much Americans spend in 1 year on candy, $107. Sporting goods, $200. Jewelry, $200. So what do you think? Should the US government give more in foreign aid? Yes or no? Why or why not? Should American private citizens give more in foreign aid? Yes or no? Why or why not? Let me wrap this up by giving you an update and giving you more recent statistics. As of 2016, we gave about $40 billion to poor countries. Compare that, this is Obama's entire budget, $4 trillion. So is foreign aid a big government program? Yes or no? Here you can see where the money goes. All right, some of it's economic. Some of it's for disasters like earthquakes. Some of it's food. Some of it's the Peace Corps. Some of it's military. We give them money to buy weapons. Here's money that goes to Afghanistan. We're trying to rebuild Afghanistan so they don't harbor terrorists. And here you see drug money. Okay, here's more drug money that we give to countries so they don't make or sell drugs. Here are the largest recipients of economic aid. Again, we're giving to Afghanistan and Pakistan, trying to make them rich, trying to make these countries in Africa rich so they don't have terrorists. What about military aid? Who gets the most help? We give Afghanistan a lot of help so that their police and military can fight against the terrorists. Same thing in Iraq. We give Israel a lot of help. They're our ally and the only democracy in the Middle East. And we give help to Egypt, our ally, and Egypt is the largest country in the Middle East in terms of population. Why do we give a lot of military help to Colombia? What are we worried about coming out of South America? Here are the weapons sales. If you want to look at that, again, we sell a lot of weapons to Israel. Japan's our friend. Australia's our friend. India. You notice a big gap here. Which is the largest country in Asia? Which country are we worried about in Asia? We give money to Saudi Arabia. Excuse me, we sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. Why? What resource does Saudi Arabia have that we care about? If you combine economic and military aid, here are the largest recipients now. It's Afghanistan, Israel, and so what do you think? This is another look at it. We spend a lot of money here fighting terrorism. And in the Middle East, we're worried about oil. We spend a lot of money in Central and South America trying to fight the war on drugs. This is a geographic look at it. This is an interesting look at it. I know it's a little hard to see, but this groups the recipients of U.S. foreign aid by income. So Afghanistan gets a lot of our money. They're really poor. Iraq gets a lot of our money. They're kind of middle income. And this is upper income countries. Israel gets a lot of our aid. They are upper income. So, what do you think? What changes in foreign aid spending, if any, do you suggest? Do you think we should spend more or less, and why? If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.